Marjorie Taylor Greene falling out of favor with Donald Troll, MAGA as we know it imploding on itself. I never thought I'd see the day. Hello, ladies, men, and non-binary friends. Welcome back. She resigned? Okay, so I filmed an entire video talking about the situation between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump, and just a few hours after I filmed that, she fucking resigned. And even more surprising, you have more Republicans considering early resignation as well to get out before, presumably, the shit hits the fan.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's surprise decision to leave Congress has set off House Republicans, many of whom are reportedly frustrated with how the Trump team and Speaker Mike Johnson are behaving. Now, there's concern that her exit could prompt others to step aside. And adding to the tensions, New CNN reporting tonight that the president's health care plan, which was originally expected this week, has been delayed due to backlash from his party.
The reporter who broke this story commented, "A few other GOP members messaged us over the weekend saying that they too are considering retiring in the middle of the term. Here's one particularly exercised senior House Republican. This entire White House team has treated all members like garbage. All. And Mike Johnson has let it happen because he wanted it to happen. This is the sentiment of nearly all appropriators, authorizers, hawks, doves, rank and file. The arrogance of this White House team is off-putting to members who are run roughshod and threatened. They don't even allow little wins like announcing small grants or even responding from agencies. Not even the high profile, the regular rank and file random members are more upset than ever. Members know they are going into the minority after the midterms. More explosive early resignations are coming. It's a tinderbox. Morale has never been lower. Mike Johnson will be stripped of his gavel and they will lose the majority before this term is out. And this is unprecedented. Even in Trump's first term, with all the shit that has happened here, we have never seen this level of discontent among the Conservative Party. And what did they expect? They knew what was in Project 2025. They knew the plan in place. What they weren't expecting was that the American people would actually fight back, that they wouldn't be shy about saying how much they fucking hate these losers for ruining their lives. And they didn't expect Trump to make their lives a living hell. And with the continued rise in political violence, it's no wonder why so many of them are falling out of line and leaving MAGA behind. Do I feel bad for them? Of course not. But I am a little giddy about this discontent in the Conservative Party. And now that these reps know that they actually do have some amount of power over Trump, even if it's only through their resignation, trust they are going to flex it for all it's worth, because no one can deny that his ship is sinking. So why am I still releasing this video? Why not just scrap it and make a new one? Well, with the rising wave of Republicans quitting Congress, this topic has remained quite relevant. And I'll be popping in with my little avatar here to clarify or add anything I might need to. But Marjorie Taylor Greene's opposition to Trump, Trump's reaction to that opposition, and the exodus following that is a live case study of what we're likely going to see from more Republicans down the line. Ultimately, what Marjorie Taylor Greene has done is that she has made the Republicans' already thin majority in the House even thinner, and led to more Republicans second-guessing whether they actually want to be a part of this deeply unpopular administration anymore, when those in purple districts and swing states will likely be losing their seat during the midterms anyway. So these Republicans now have a choice. Stick it out with this fascist government where you have no power anyway because you've allowed the Trump administration to completely abuse the power of the executive branch, and get voted out after the 2026 midterms. Or if you're one of the few that does remain in power, working in a conservative minority when you have even less power than before. Or get the fuck out while you still can. It's no surprise that there's people considering the latter, but there are still dangers to this, as Nick Fuentes and his little goons are on the rise. Don't worry, we'll get into all that. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the fracturing in the MAGA base and in Trump's own party, and where we can expect the Republicans to go from here. Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is famously known for her Jewish space laser nonsense and other various conspiracy theories, in addition to the tangible harm that she's done to minority groups, including but not limited to queer and trans Americans, immigrants, Black Americans, and more. Now, when I've seen people talk about this, they're calling Marjorie Taylor Greene's breakup with Trump the canary in the coal mine. And this divergence, which started with conservative influencers, is now rippling through the Conservative Party party's own politicians. You know, those losers like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and Andrew Schultz, who sucked Trump's cock so hard in these interviews that led to his increased popularity and eventual presidency, are now going back on their endorsement of him. We're going to see this divide continue to happen within the conservative base, and I predict it will make up 3 major groups. Now, the first are the MAGA loyalists. This is pretty straightforward. These are the people who, despite everything that has happened, will still remain loyal to Trump. And these people can only be described as brainwashed pigs, because if you've seen all that has happened over the past year and been like, you know what? He's still my guy. I have to assume that you are so brainwashed by this cult that you literally do not think for yourself anymore. The second is centrist conservatives. Now, I am putting this in heavy quotation marks because it's all relative, and centrist conservatives in the US are still staunchly on the right. But just humor me. And I would say this category includes Republicans that were interested in releasing the Epstein files, but also believe in deporting undocumented people, but also maybe don't agree with ICE taking US citizens. They probably hate transgender people, they probably don't support abortion or gay marriage, but they are also worried about grocery prices, rent prices, etc. Your typical run-of-the-mill bigot. And the last group is Nazis. Yes, literal Nazis. Led by Nick Fuentes and his Groypers, these are the Nazis that believe Trump and his administration haven't gone far enough. And while we see some overlap between these groups, we are witnessing these fractures increasingly grow wider. And the recent rift between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump gives us this kind of live case study about how I suspect this will continue to play out over the next few months, with conservative politicians looking to jump ship while they still can. Never skip a Hope Corps video, folks. Before we get back to the video, I want to take a second to talk about the challenges we face when we're trying to understand anything happening in the world right now. Media coverage is often confusing, incomplete, and depending on where you get your news, can be wildly different from outlet to outlet. You've probably seen it yourself. 2 headlines about the exact same story that look like they're describing entirely different realities. And these differences will push people to entirely different conclusions. Thankfully, today's sponsor, Ground News, makes that possible with just a few clicks. Ground News is a website and app designed to make reading the news easier, more transparent, and way more data-driven. Every day, they pull in thousands of articles from across the political spectrum and organize them by story. And when you click into any story, you'll see visual breakdowns of political biases, reliability ratings, and even ownership of the outlets covering it. You get side-by-side comparisons of headlines, so you can immediately see how left-leaning, right-leaning, and centrist sources are framing the same event. And the best part, if you subscribe today, you get 40% off the Vantage plan, which is the plan that I personally use to get unlimited access to all of their features. Just go to my link here or in the description, or use the QR code right here on screen. I've been using Ground News because it helps cut through the bias and the noise and allows me to see more than just what's the dominant narrative. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Here's a current Ground News story on the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare. Right away, you can see that 70 outlets have reported on this. Ground News shows that 9% lean left, 27% lean right, and the rest falls somewhere in the center. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you compare headlines, the framing changes dramatically. On the left, you have headlines actually calling it Obamacare, but on the right, it's framed more like Trump came up with this healthcare plan by himself, instead of temporarily reinstating the healthcare programs he plans to cut. One of my favorite features is their blind spot feed, which shows you stories that are being heavily covered on one side of the political spectrum, but almost completely ignored by the other. And it's really eye-opening to see the information bubbles that you can get yourself stuck in, and what stories you may be missing entirely. It's important to understand what other people are seeing. What is the other side seeing on a day-to-day basis? If we're combating misinformation and the lies that this administration is putting out, we need to at least know what the other side is saying. Ground News actually helps me understand the full picture and get outside of my bubble. If you're someone who wants to be informed, honestly, Ground News is one of the best tools that I have, and it will absolutely change the way that you read the news. Subscribe today and support a more transparent, more informed media landscape. Now back to the video. One of the biggest critiques from the MAGA, or rather ex-MAGA crowd regarding Trump, is that Trump isn't abiding by his motto, America First, which Marjorie Taylor Greene has been publicly agreeing with. "We didn't elect the president to go out there and travel the world and end the foreign wars," Greene said. "We elected the president to stop sending tax dollars and weapons for the foreign wars, to completely not engage anymore. Watching the foreign leaders come to the White House through a revolving door is not helping Americans. I'm America first, America only, hardcore." All right, Marjorie, settle down. Now, Trump's response to her was, measured, totally rational, definitely calm, cool, collected, for sure.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is a disgrace to our great Republican Party.
He also put out a tweet calling her Marjorie Taylor Brown instead of Marjorie Taylor Greene because when green grass turns brown, that means it's rotting. He's fucking losing it, guys.
Her life could be at danger because of the rhetoric.
Her life is in danger? Who's that?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, she says.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't think her life is in danger. Frankly, I don't think anybody cares about her.
Now, for those of us familiar with Trump's antics, we know that loyalty to him is absolutely paramount. And for anybody that goes against him, he's not afraid to absolutely smear you and cut off ties completely. He's a real drama queen like that. So it wasn't a surprise that he alerted his entire base at Marjorie Taylor Greene's slightest bit of pushback against him. And this has only worked to her benefit. Trump is supremely unpopular. His approval levels have never been lower. And she's sort of presenting herself as this like rational conservative who's standing on a set of principles instead of blindly backing the head of the party, particularly in relation to the Epstein files. But this has led to Trump loyalists directing their ire towards her. I wonder what that's like. How does it feel being on the conservative end of fucking asshole conservatives, Marjorie? I never would have expected to have something in common with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but 2025, man. It's getting crazy here. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene appeared on CNN a few days ago and looked almost scared for the first time I've ever seen her. Now, since her breakup with Trump, the diehard MAGA loyalists have started going after her. So much so that she actually tweeted about this harassment. And I'm not saying that this is just desserts. I don't think anyone deserves to be threatened, but she is finally getting a taste of the empire that she built. Representative Jasmine Crockett responded, "Okay, now that MTG has said it, do y'all now believe me when I say that Trump fuels hate against those who oppose him? Will faux news finally start to address that this man has created a permission structure of hate and violence, or will you only talk about it when it's one of your beloveds? Next time you want to run a story about me legally paying for security, maybe run one on the insane amount of threats that I get that you are complicit in fueling." And she's right. Political violence in this country has always been dominated by right-wing and particularly alt-right movements and people. Now, in her CNN appearance, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually apologized for the political violence that she has personally perpetuated. Now, granted, she hasn't spoken about it until it has directly affected her, but I will give her credit. She ate crow, she did apologize, but none of this means anything if there is no action associated with it. And we're seeing this more and more with conservative women jumping ship because they are realizing they are not as welcome in this movement as they thought they were. And why they thought they would be welcome in the most misogynistic, racist, homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic administration in history, I have no idea. Even if it's for the simple "I told you so" satisfaction, I'm glad that they're finally realizing that they're actually not special. And my hope is that in the future, there are women who can look back at this time in history and avoid being tempted by these movements that ultimately do not have their safety or well-being in mind. But to be clear, even with this new leaf that she has seemingly turned over, it's important that we don't forget the actions that Marjorie Taylor Greene has taken to actively endanger and hurt other Americans.
I would rather shit in my hands and clap than believe Marjorie Taylor Greene is sorry for the harm that she's done. And before she tries to clean up her image, let's look at all the horrible things she's done and said in her time in office. She has spread hate and QAnon conspiracy theories from the start. She's called for a pardon for Derek Chauvin, the killer cop who was convicted of killing George Floyd. She spread anti-vaccine misinformation during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. She even called the virus a China virus many times, saying it was a China-made bioweapon. She spread the false great replacement theory that black and brown people are taking over the country and replacing white people, a theory that has led to multiple racist mass shootings. She's a known Islamophobe too, and she once compared being called a racist to being called the N-word. She saved special hate for LGBTQ plus people and women. She has called pride and BLM flags hate America flags. She has also called abortion the worst evil that is committed in America. She regularly got into screaming matches with her colleagues, including an infamous one with Jasmine Crockett, who responded to Marjorie Taylor Greene's attacks by asking what were to happen if she was to mention her bleach, blonde, bad-built, butch body. And now, after years of terrorizing people, she says she's sorry. Do you believe her?
And for people who have done so many heinous things, for people who have a history of perpetuating violence and being cruel, spreading misinformation, and being very bigoted, I'm not willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. That is something they have to earn. I think as they were perpetuating this violence, they just assumed that it was always going to affect other people, that it was only going to affect their enemies. And now that they are being affected, they've come to the right conclusion, but it is for the wrong reasons. I do believe that people can change, but it has to be on them, and needless to say, I am not expecting anything major from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was previously the pseudo-heiress of the MAGA movement, who literally started her political career because of Trump, who is known for her loudmouth, terrible takes, and viral moments. But now that she's turned on Trump and MAGA, it seems like she's kind of scared shitless of what they might do to her. And again, I'm not endorsing this, but she has a right to be afraid. The right, and particularly the alt-right, is incredibly violent. Like I said, I don't think this is going to be a 180 for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I genuinely think most of the moves that she's making here are to preserve her political career. But I also genuinely think that she has felt the fear of political violence. But we need to see her undo a lot of work before I actually really start to feel bad for her. And I do think that these people interviewing her can get better insight on her and clock if her intentions are true or not. But we haven't really seen like a ton of pushback. We got a little bit in the CNN interview, but it wasn't nearly enough. She has talked about protecting Palestinian children. Does she feel the same way about children of immigrants in this country? Does she feel the same way about gay Americans, about trans Americans? These interviewers need to ask her about the conspiracies that she's perpetuated, the 2020 election being stolen, the Jewish space laser shit. She's already talked about her stance on political violence, but how does she feel specifically about that guy who shot Democratic Minnesota lawmakers, or those people who burned down that judge's house for going against one of Trump's orders? Because if those stances have not changed, if she still holds those bigoted views, then this is all just a fucking pony show. It's entertainment, it's theater, it is grifting. And again, it is possible to deconstruct, but until I see proof of her changing, I can only believe she is doing this because the tides are changing. Now, mind you, there are still plenty of things that she is aligned with Trump on. She has even said that though her and Trump disagree on things, she still supports him as the president. And despite rejecting the alt-right rhetoric and political violence in recent days, she has plenty of ties to alt-right figures and movements. And remember those three groups that we talked about at the beginning of this video? She has kind of positioned herself at the intersection of all three of these groups, which could either be an incredibly smart move or lead to her downfall, though her own voters seem to be sticking with her despite her feud with Trump. One voter stated, "That's not right, it's not right," of Trump's accusation. She should not be seen as a traitor. She's trying to do the best for the American people, and I think Donald Trump should accommodate her and work for America. She has a lot of courage and tells it like it is. Another voter stated, "I feel like what she's doing is she's just standing up for what she personally has a belief in. And you know, it takes a lot to stand up against the president, or any president for that matter." So again, right now it seems to be working out for her, which isn't surprising because again, Trump's approval rating is the lowest it has ever been. People's groceries are too high, unemployment is abysmal, people that are working 40 hours can barely pay all their basic bills. People are struggling, and voters on both sides are tired of Trump's excuses and lies. So again, even if she is still trying to kind of remain friendly with Trump and keep that door open, as long as she has some separation for things as popular as the Epstein files or stopping sending money to Israel, then I think she will likely maintain this drift in popularity, and it could go very well for her as a centrist conservative. But hold on. Marjorie Taylor Greene was asked about her association with Nick Fuentes, and she kind of gave this meandering answer about free speech.
Well, first of all, I defend every single person's free speech rights. I think that's incredibly important. So I don't apologize for that, and I don't believe in canceling people. And I think it's important for people like Tucker Carlson and yourself to interview everyone. I don't believe in trying to cancel someone by refusing to interview them and question them.
And when she was reminded about the difference between free speech and hate speech, she was sort of like, well, I don't want to contribute to political violence though. I'm different now. I don't want to contribute to political violence. So which is it? Do you consider what Nick Fuentes is doing protected free speech? Because it's not. Or do you want to eliminate political violence? Because political violence starts with political rhetoric from people like Nick Fuentes. You can't have both. And I think this disconnect exists not only in the Conservative Party, but in the Democratic Party as well. That violent rhetoric begets violent action. Where when the Democrats are well, we all just need to get along and we all just need to get along. It's okay, well, there's also shit happening on the right that is preventing people from getting along, and you need to fucking stand up and do the right thing and call that shit out. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Groypers are followers of Nick Fuentes, who is a fucking Nazi. He's a self-proclaimed Nazi. He's a Holocaust denier. He's a fucking grade A piece of shit. He's anti-immigration. He's a Christian nationalist. And Tucker Carlson interviewed him with this bullshit interview. He didn't ask any hard-hitting questions. It was basically just a fucking glazing session, and basically exposed Nick Fuentes, who was previously this fringe figure, to a much larger audience. violence, which is incredibly dangerous. And Nick Fuentes' whole position is that the MAGA conservatives, the mainstream conservatives, have not gone far enough. He is advocating for a more radically conservative administration, and called even organizations like Turning Point USA, which was Charlie Kirk's media company, as being conservative light. And basically people's fear, including myself, is that this radical vision that he has for the Conservative Party is something that will continue to grow as Trump's administration continues to fail the American people, where instead of maybe leaning more left, they're just going to lead more people going into violent alt-right extremism. And this is a very real threat, and I think it will be interesting to see Marjorie Taylor Greene specifically, because the way she has navigated this entire situation, she's kind of like straddling all three of these groups and like not quite taking a side, which is more like traditional politician, trying to stay in the good graces of as many kinds of people as possible. But in going against Trump, who is now the establishment, she's still being seen as like her own person and personally authentic and standing on her own principles. So I'm very interested to see if she stays the more centrist route now that she has been threatened with political violence and avoid that extremist alt-right rhetoric, or if the rise of this ultra-violent extremism will lead her to veer into that lane. And again, with her history of anti-Semitism, I wouldn't fucking put it past her, but I don't know. I just think it's something to look out for. And regardless of whether or not that happens, we will still continue to see this infighting within the Conservative Party and within the conservative base as well. The projected elections for 2026 are staunchly Democratic, which isn't surprising. But in terms of a long-term identity for the Republican Party, I'm hoping we can drift more back to like relative centrism and not go right into fucking Nazism. Like, could we please? Could we fucking please? But this fracture within the GOP will limit their ability to win majorities. In addition to Trump continuing to fumble and look like an absolute fucking fool, it will be either interesting or incredibly horrifying to see which faction of the Conservative Party wins out in this MAGA civil war. And I think it's on all of us too to continue exposing Nazism and like reminding people that it's like fucking bad for everybody. Like just keep an eye out. Stay informed, deprogram and help people deconstruct as often as you can. Always, always, always bringing it back to things like affordability and class consciousness. Remind people of their material conditions and that things can get better under different leadership. Leadership with equal rights in mind, not just the rights of those in power and those of the supremely wealthy. Because we will see this happen on a much larger scale within MAGA's fan base. You have MAGA loyalists like Lori Kudlow saying that affordability is overrated. I'm sure that'll work out really well for you, Larry. You don't need to pay for groceries, but we do need to get rid of all the trans people. That is priority numero uno. I can't even say that too loudly or ICE might take me. But while this fracture is good for everyone, including conservatives, we need to be very careful of the rise of the alt-right as they continue to gain steam. As always, I have Rwan's GoFundMe linked below. She was supposed to attend university this year, but Israel bombed her home and her school out of existence. The first episode of Westerly Academy Season 2 should be up. The ad revenue goes directly to Palestinian families, so by literally watching D&D, you are helping the people of Palestine. So if you don't have money to donate, that's a great other option for you. Make sure to check out our sponsor, Ground News, in the description below. And if you really want to be a sweetie pie, you can support me on Patreon. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Bye. Very special thank you to Bagel's dad, Derek, Anonymous, Tiny Axes, and Robin Fellows.